Welcome back to the John Fourcade Show. Another one of our John Fourcade specials this week. A 2017 Ford Expedition Limited. $97.50 off in total savings, or you can get $10,500 off in total savings. Again, on a 2017 Ford Expedition Limited, $97.50 off or $10,500 off in total savings right here at Veterans Ford. We're back here on the John Fourcade Show. John, as advertised, you couldn't ask for a better game than Alabama-Clemson. Back-to-back years, it has shown the two best teams got to the national championship game. And a bit shocking that Clemson offensively was able to keep that Alabama defense, which looked a lot of times like the '85 Bears, on the field for 99 plays. This big guy set the tone early in the football game in both Scarborough.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Alabama came in this football game, new OC, and they said, we're going to run the football with Bo, and he powered himself down the field. There's no doubt you see him scoring here. But the key and the man is right here, named Watson.
And he showed he could win with his feet and with the arm.
Mostly with his arms, I felt.
He did a great job. And if there was any question marks about if he can play at the next level, I think he answered them. I got to work with him a little bit at the Manning camp, and what a humble guy. All he would talk about, John, was winning a national championship. Nothing about individual honors. And Ken Berthelot's with us. He can say to this, when the interviews ended, he was the guy who stayed 10 minutes afterwards and let me interview him. He could have easily walked away, but he stayed afterwards. That was O.J. Howard. Again, they got trouble guarding him. But this super pass here to the difference maker, number 7, Mike Williams. And if there was a guy from last year to this year that made a difference, it was the big wideout.
I totally agree. He's an outstanding wide receiver, but Mike, we got to be honest, that was a pick play. I mean, you can say that, you can judgify. Officials now have to start calling this on college level, pro college. But this guy's a beast. Ain't no doubt about it. You got undersized guys. You got undersized guys trying to cover a guy without any help, and the guy that had help over the top wasn't enough to get over there. And
did they
right
miss
here.
Eddie Jackson?
Yeah. There's no doubt.
They missed Eddie Jackson. And then, again, every time Alabama, 2 double-digit leads in the second half, Clemson would fight right back and get to it. They ran the football. And one of the things, Nick Saban always talks about stopping the run, and for the most part, they did. But they could not stop the gunslinger himself.
Right. But let's be honest. This is the reason why Alabama lost this football game. Granted,
right here at
it's
quarterback.
a great run. I'm all for this right there. We can sit there and say, oh, what are you talking about? The young man right here did not produce in the last half of the season for Alabama as their starting quarterback. He's not a pure quarterback to be able to play and take Alabama. Alabama don't want one. Alabama's look at their last 10 years of being quarterbacks. They got average Joe Blow playing quarterback, but they win with defense.
And then
6
here's
seconds
the
left.
game winner. Now, here's a gutsy call. Look what the time says. 1 second. What would have happened had the receiver bobbled the ball and dropped it?
Right.
And that clock would have ran out. So Dabo Swinney, and it was a great play in what they did. And again, whatever you want to call it, pick play.
Well, but this wasn't a pick play
as much as the first one was.
Because the receiver did not touch the DB, and he was nowhere near it. But it's a gutsy call. I agree totally. But the play prior to that, the pass interference, they would have probably had, maybe if they didn't call a pass interference, the guy wasn't in the end zone. Poorly called there. It's 35-31 final score. But, Mike, that wasn't pass interference in the end zone. They moved it to the 2-yard line. It should have been placed at the 8-yard line. Now what does Clemson do on the play? Do they really try to throw the ball in the end zone?
I think he did not want to take this game into overtime. Right. I think he wanted to win it in regulation and get it over with, despite the fact that a defense that had been the best in college football, I don't think anybody can debate that, was totally dominated in the second half of this game. They had no depth and certainly showed Eddie Jackson, who they lost right before the LSU game, at the safety position. They covered up for Eddie, but in this game, they took full advantage of a guy who can't cover over the top.
Well, the guys playing up front, they dominated the game for Alabama. The guys behind them did not show up to play. But I'm going to say this to people out there listening. I don't want to hear no more defense wins championships. Let's be honest. Look back at the last 10 NCAA championship games. There's no defense being played to win championship. You better have an offense in college football. You better have a quarterback who can throw the football. There's no doubt about it. When somebody goes, oh, the Denver Broncos won a championship, that's the Denver Broncos in the NFL. And you look at 10 years in the NFL, only Tampa Bay won it, no quarterback. Baltimore Ravens, no quarterback. And then last year, the Broncos, no quarterback. But in college football, I don't care about your defense, how great your defense is. When you give a team 90-something plays,
99 plays,
you're not going to win that football game.
The other thing, too, is the fact that everybody says, why would that highly rated quarterback from Hawaii commit to Alabama with a freshman quarterback starting? Well, after what we've seen from midseason on, you can understand why that kid's got a legitimate shot to play next year for Alabama.
We all sitting here trying to figure, why doesn't Alabama, or even a bunch of teams in the SEC, get quality quarterbacks? Well, it's because of some of the offense that these guys run. They want to run the pounding ground as well as have a defense in the SEC and maybe have an adequate, decent quarterback. But that's not what it's going to be nowadays, Mike. You got to have a quarterback who can throw the football. I'm sorry, people listening out there. This dual threat running around, you better throw the football. You better have a quarterback who can throw. If you ask him to throw 40 times a game, complete 30-something passes. And look at the kid Watson. Yes, granted, he does throw a lot of INTs, and they'll have to work with that when he gets to the next level. But the kid threw the ball, and he threw it just enough to win the football game, but he could throw the football from the pocket, Mike.
That's the key. A lot of guys can't do it. They got to throw off the run. It's different. One of the things Nick Saban, and I did some junkets with him when he was at LSU, he talked about stopping the run was key, but every once in a while you face a gunslinger quarterback. Mm-hmm. And look at the guys that have beaten him. Cam Newton, Chad Kelly, Johnny Manziel, Nick Marshall when he had that great season at Auburn. All those guys sort of trend in one direction, and then you've seen back-to-back games against Deshaun Watson. They had no answer to. Because last year, Deshaun, he did everything but win the game for Clemson.
Right. And that's the key. You got enough film on a young man. You know he's going. But, Mike, we all know that if he only threw 30 passes, maybe you got a chance. But when you're getting a 40-something passes being thrown, you're putting your defense in a lot more trouble. You're adding another 10, 12 more plays to the secondary. And with these receivers they had, Mike, they had big enough receivers. They just threw the ball up a lot of times, and he out-jumped it. That tight end made a heck of a catch, Leggett.
Yeah, Leggett's a good football player.
And Williams, look what he did just throwing the ball up. So I'm going to tell this again. I'm going to say it again. Alabama lost that game because they have no QB, and Clemson had a QB.
And I think everybody would agree on that. And I think in college football, if you're in the SEC, the thing is you got to get better protecting your quarterback, and you got to find a guy that can throw the football from the pocket and win for you.
Amen,
I think
brother.
if you coach O, that has got to be #1 priority for you. Rebuild your offensive line from the outside in and get your guy who can throw accurately from the pocket. We'll be back with more of the John Fourcade Show, sponsored each week by Veterans Ford.